What is going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about NIO. I want to go over some of the current data points, some of the key highlights from the earnings that you need to kind of take away from it all, and go over everything else you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So NIO is down 4.56%, 436 the low, 462 the high. So very volatile day. I think in general, a lot of individuals knew that. Witching day and just NIO's earnings, which didn't really come in according to plan. That's a nice way of saying that they did miss. But even looking over here, the implied move going into the earnings was 7.76%. So it is on rather the tame side. So based on the options, it was signaling that it was going to be a lot more volatile than what it played out to be. But just for face value, they did miss on a lot of the key metrics, so it wasn't necessarily the best. They did give some good highlights though, some very good positives I'm going to go over near the end of the video. Shorts are right now increasing 1.5 million shares, 15.75% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 210.39 million shares overall are being shorted. There is roughly 1 minute left in the trading day. So it'll be interesting to see where NIO does close. If it is above that 450, then you do have roughly 13,000 at that 450 strike price in the money. If it closes below that 450, then those will expire worthless. But this is the current open interest. So you have 11,000 at that 3, 16,000 at that 4. So yeah, pretty good stuff. We'll have to wait and see how that does play out. But shorts didn't really do all that much throughout the trading day. They were increasing just shy of around 2 million shares during the beginning part, so they kind of been trading back and forth throughout the day. The only thing I wanted to essentially bring up as far as articles was this right here. So NIO just kind of expressed its wasn't really satisfied with Envo's not necessarily hitting the targets, so that's not all that great. But then again, I'm pretty sure from the weekly registration numbers, a lot of investors could kind of piece 2 and 2 together and kind of read between the lines. But looking at options, 7.03 million in calls, 2.87 in puts, 56% of all the options being done are optimistic in nature. So in the second half of the day, you see these big outliers. That is clearly big money. Even right here between 130 and 135, there's 1.2 million in premiums. And based on that one right here, if we kind of pop this open, organize it based on premiums. So it was a multi-leg transaction, but it was more oriented towards being bullish. So you had 440,000 and also the 440 premium was a 550 call that was purchased, which is generally bullish. The other one was a 341,000 premium, $6 call that was purchased. Flip side, you did have some bearish ones as well. So the 240 was a $6 sell. This is all the contract expiry dates. So you have it ranging between, looks like April 17th and May the 16th. So pretty good in that regard. And the market just closed. So it closed exactly at that 450, meaning over here that this 13,000 does and will be considered in the money. So that's kind of a positive thing. So that might mean a little bit more of a bump up come next week, or possibly after hours, you might see some abnormal activity. So let me know your general thoughts on that. Aside from that though, or I guess aside from looking at the open interest, volume did signal that there's a little bit more upside. And so based on this, there is still a strong anticipation for it to be above 5 going into next week, and then even for it to be roughly around that $6 range for April. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub roughly $4. So based on this, there is a lot more upside still anticipated. So let me know your kind of thoughts on that. These are the only transactions that did occur on the secondary market above $100,000. So only 2 transactions. So big money wasn't really involved in the day-to-day, at least on the secondary market. So 1 buy and 1 sell. And then aside from that though, these are all the transactions that did occur on the dark pool. So fairly popular of a day. So market just closed. You just had a $900,000 one, a $2 million one. And then aside from that, these are all the transactions. So shorts used the dark pool to hide a lot of their transactions, as well as other large entities. With it closing at 450 though, right below this pivot point, so $4.60 is going to be the next strong target / resistance. Flip side, 418. So positive note, if you want to think about things like glass half full type of scenario, It didn't touch this S1, so kind of the technicals are still somewhat okay. For NIO for the end of the week, it did ultimately close right over here, negative 7.59%. So it had some pretty good momentum, but regrettably, for various reasons, it just started to get dragged down. So kind of unfortunate. No actual ratings. So I get it. Maybe today's Friday. Analysts want to just take the day off or something like that. But there has been no official ratings submitted through TipRanks today. So most likely they should be coming in maybe over the weekend or possibly early next week. And I would anticipate probably a rough, like around 5 to 6 maybe. So again, just kind of anticipate that, because that could also move NIO in a positive or negative way, depending on the price targets that is given. But with it closing at $4.50, it was able to close still above this point right here, that ALMA, which is sitting at 504. It did unfortunately close below both that 100 and also 200-day moving average, and then that 50-day moving average is sitting at $4.42. So yeah, definitely quite the volatile day. With today's pullback, most likely stochastic RSI will get dragged down to probably that 20 to 30. So getting a little bit to that oversold status. So that should really help NIO maybe have a secondary run and push higher. Maybe next week we see it bounce off of that 50-day moving average and then move higher from there. But what's your general thoughts on all of that? As far as some of the key absolute highlights from the earnings, kind of compiled this. So this is some of the profitability. So they did state that they're going to be break even in Q4. So just to be clear, that is break even, not like full profitability. So obviously distinguish the difference. Gross target margin is 20%, and net. On a side note, they did actually improve on their margins. That was kind of a good thing, good takeaway from their recent earnings. But I think just generally there is a lot of uncertainty when it comes down to China. So I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway from a lot of it, is just what is coming next. So yeah, there's a lot of good highlights. So I'll leave this up here. Feel free to pause it. What was some of your key highlights from the earnings that you thought was amazing, or was there anything that you really like wanted to buy NIO because of for today? So let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. One final thing, pop over to my Discord. It is completely free. A lot of good people, a lot of good chat. Everything that you need in life is there. So definitely pop over there and take a look. With all that, appreciate all of you watching.